What if I told you that if the US slips into a recession, entire states could collapse long before Wall Street even notices? Because right now, America is far weaker than people think. Millions of households are drowning in record debt, over $40,000 on average, and nearly 60% of Americans can't cover a $1,000 emergency. State governments are no better. According to national budget data, several states have only weeks, not months, of financial cushion to keep schools, hospitals, and pensions running if tax revenue drops. Meanwhile, housing markets in parts of the country are already cracking. Prices slipping, inventory piling up, and mortgage delinquencies rising for the first time in years. Add to that soaring insurance costs, shrinking job markets, and poverty rates that still sit above 18% in some states, and you get a perfect storm. This isn't a warning. This is the reality before a recession even begins. In the next few minutes, you'll see which 10 states are sitting on economic fault lines so unstable that even a mild recession could turn them into the epicenter of America's next financial disaster. And as we count them down, you'll want to pay close attention, because the state sitting at number 1 isn't just vulnerable. It's a ticking economic time bomb that could shock the entire country. Number 10. Kentucky. Kentucky fooled a lot of people, including me. When you first look at the numbers, you think, hey, this place looks stable, affordable homes, solid reserves, what's the problem? But the deeper I dug, the more I realized something unsettling. Kentucky is the kind of state that looks calm on the surface, right until the ground gives out underneath it. Here's what most folks don't know. Yes, Kentucky built one of the strongest rainy day funds in the nation, over 130 days of savings. That sounds impressive, until you remember what a rainy day fund can't fix. It can't fix structural poverty, it can't fix weak industries, and it definitely can't fix the kind of slow, grinding economic pressure that's been building here for years. Unemployment has climbed to 4.7%, and poverty remains above 15%. Leaving much of the state walking a financial tightrope each month. And the housing market. This is where things get interesting. Homes average around $225,000, which feels reasonable until you talk to actual homeowners. I've heard story after story of people who thought they made it when they bought a place, only to realize the mortgage was the easy part. It's the insurance hikes, the rising utilities, the property taxes, the repairs they didn't expect. Suddenly, that affordable home starts feeling like a financial anchor pulling them under. But the real danger? Kentucky's economy leans heavily on industries like manufacturing, coal, agriculture, sectors that historically get hit first and hardest when a recession shows up, and in a lot of rural counties, you can already feel the squeeze. Job options are thinning, wages are flat, and mortgage delinquencies are inching up quietly in the background, like a warning light no one wants to acknowledge. Number 9. Rhode Island. Rhode Island is small enough to miss on a map, but big enough to spark a financial headache you'll feel across the entire country. This tiny coastal state has been quietly stacking economic red flags, and the more you look at the numbers, the more alarming the picture becomes. For starters, Rhode Island is running with one of the thinnest financial cushions in America. Its rainy day fund sits at just 6.9% of annual spending, basically a few gusts of bad economic weather before the roof starts leaking, and those clouds are already rolling in. Unemployment has pushed up to 5.4%, noticeably higher than just a year ago, and the state's GDP has flattened to zero growth. That's the economic equivalent of a heart rate monitor holding a straight line. Housing isn't offering any relief either. The median home price has climbed to around $446,000, but the median income is only about $74,000. That ratio is brutal. It forces families into mortgages that stretch their budgets to the limit, especially when the average Rhode Islander is already carrying over $41,700 in personal debt. And the real lurking danger? Long-term pension obligations. Rhode Island has one of the more fragile pension systems in the country. If a recession triggers job losses and tax revenue dips even slightly, the state could be staring at a serious funding crunch. Rhode Island may be picturesque, historic, and charming, but beneath the coastlines and cobblestone streets is an economy that can't afford much more pressure. Number 8. Idaho. Idaho went from the pandemic's hottest boomtown to one of America's most fragile markets, almost overnight. For a few years, it felt like everyone with a laptop and a dream was packing up and heading to Boise. And at first, the growth looked unstoppable. But growth that fast always comes with a price, and Idaho is starting to feel every bit of it. The population has surged nearly 18% since 2015, an explosion few states could absorb gracefully. Housing simply couldn't keep up, and it shows. Boise's median home price shot all the way to $483,000, literally double what it was just a few years earlier. And when prices rise that fast, they don't climb forever. Eventually, the air runs out of the bubble. Now, inventory is up 28% year over year. Sellers are panicking, and buyers are backing off. The housing burden is crushing. 22% of households are spending more than 30% of their income just to keep a roof over their heads. And with property taxes rising, insurance spiking, and ARM borrowers staring down interest rate resets, a lot of families are watching their monthly payments quietly drift into danger territory. Idaho's economy isn't offering much breathing room either. GDP growth has slowed to 0.5%, about as close to a stall as you can get without officially stopping. Tech layoffs have already begun, construction has cooled, and real estate, once the engine powering the entire state, has shifted from overdrive to neutral. And the financial safety net? Barely there. Idaho's rainy day fund sits at 6.1%, leaving very little cushion if tax revenues start slipping. Number 7. Arizona. Arizona pulled off one of the biggest illusions in America, turning the desert into a booming paradise, only for the cracks to finally show. For years, everyone flooded into the state, retirees chasing sunshine, remote workers escaping high-tax cities, investors grabbing up every piece of land they could find. And at first, it worked. Growth was explosive. Construction cranes were everywhere. Phoenix felt unstoppable. But when a boom happens too fast, the drought always comes next. The median home price across Arizona hovers around $424,000, but in hotspots like Phoenix and Scottsdale, it blew past $550,000, a number that completely detached from the state's median income of $72,900. That gap alone is enough to squeeze the middle class dry. No wonder 31% of Arizona households are now officially cost-burdened, spending more than 30% of their income just to stay housed. And here's where things get dangerous. The jobs that fueled the boom are evaporating. Phoenix has already lost 19,000 jobs, and the state's unemployment rate has climbed to 5.8%, one of the highest in the region. GDP has slipped to negative 0.9%, turning that once-roaring economy into a sputtering engine. Meanwhile, personal finances are tightening like a vice. Arizona residents are carrying about $43,500 in consumer debt, and with interest rates high, that debt is getting more expensive every month. Even worse, the state's rainy day fund is only 5.8%, leaving almost no cushion if tax revenue drops or layoffs continue. Arizona's boom made headlines. Arizona's slowdown isn't making headlines yet, but it's hitting families hard through rising bills, shrinking wages, and mortgages that suddenly feel too heavy to carry. Number 6. Nevada. Nevada is the kind of state that thrives when America parties and collapses the moment the music stops. And right now, the music is getting quieter by the month. Tourism, the lifeline of Nevada's entire economy, has already slipped 13%. And trust me, that's not a small dip. In a state where casinos, hotels, and entertainment keep everything else afloat, a slowdown like that hits harder than a blackjack loss on a bad night in Vegas. You can see the ripple effects everywhere. Las Vegas home prices have fallen 8.7% year over year. Inventory has surged 34%, and nearly 19% of Vegas homeowners are now underwater, owing more on their mortgages than their homes are worth. That's the kind of math that turns a dream home into a financial trap. And while all this is happening, Nevada is running on one of the weakest financial safety nets in America. Its rainy day fund sits at just 5.1%, the second lowest in the entire country. That means, if tax revenue drops, which it already is, the state has almost no buffer to keep essential services running. The job market? Even rougher. Unemployment has climbed to 6.3%, and Las Vegas alone has shed over 22,000 jobs, mostly in the exact industries that collapse first in a recession. Hotels, casinos, entertainment venues, all pulling back at the same time. On top of that, households are carrying an average of $45,200 in consumer debt. With interest rates still high, that debt becomes a weight that gets heavier every single month. Number 5. Indiana. Indiana is the kind of place where you can feel the economy slowing down just by driving past the factories. The heartbeat of the state is getting quieter. And when manufacturing stumbles, Indiana doesn't just wobble, it drops fast. The numbers coming out of 2025 paint a rough picture. GDP has slipped minus 1.1%, factory output is down a staggering 6.7%, and more than 42,000 jobs have disappeared in just months. Anyone who lives in the Midwest knows what that means. When the assembly lines slow, entire towns feel the shock. Unemployment has climbed to 5.9%, and even with the state's rainy day fund sitting at 6.4%, it's nowhere near enough to cushion the blow if tax revenues keep slipping. Indiana has always relied heavily on autos, steel, and manufacturing, industries that have absolutely no mercy during a recession. When demand weakens, shifts get cut, overtime disappears, and pink slips start showing up. And for families, the squeeze is already here. The median home price may be just $246,000, but median household income sits at only $63,000. That gap leaves almost no room for rising costs, and it shows in the eviction numbers. Indiana has seen a 22% jump in evictions year over year, with renters and low-income households getting hit the hardest. Homeowners aren't safe either. Insurance premiums are rising, utilities are climbing, and mortgage delinquencies are inching up as paychecks shrink. Number 4. South Carolina. South Carolina looks like one of America's hottest growth stories, until you realize the growth is built on a foundation that's cracking fast. People poured into the state for the beaches, the charm, and the affordable lifestyle. But the truth is, the affordability vanished the moment everyone arrived. In just a few years, the median home price has exploded to $388,000, up 52% since 2019. Meanwhile, the median income is still hovering around $63,900, which doesn't even come close to keeping pace. That mismatch has turned South Carolina into one of the most cost-burdened states in the Southeast. Nearly 29% of homeowners are stretched thin, and a brutal 42% of renters are spending more than 30% of their income just to stay housed. And here's the part most people don't see. The very industries that fueled South Carolina's rise are now pulling back. Tourism revenue is down 11%, construction starts have fallen 18%, and the state has already shed more than 38,000 jobs this year. Once the flow of tourists and new residents slows, the entire economic engine starts running on fumes. Household debt isn't helping either. Families are carrying an average of $43,800, and with interest rates eating into every dollar, that debt feels heavier every month. Add in a rainy day fund of only 6%, and South Carolina has almost no cushion to absorb the shock if things get worse. It's the classic story of a state that grew too fast, built too much, and priced out the very people who made it thrive. The boom is still visible. The cranes, the condos, the new developments, but underneath, the pressure is building. Number 3. Mississippi. Mississippi isn't just vulnerable, it's the most fragile state economy in America, and the numbers make your stomach drop. This is a state that's been walking on thin ice for years, and in a recession, that ice doesn't crack, it shatters. Start with this. Mississippi has the highest poverty rate in the entire United States, sitting at 19.9%. That alone would put enormous pressure on families, but it's only the beginning. The state's rainy day fund covers just 5.2% of its annual budget, barely enough fuel to keep the lights on if tax revenue dries up for even a short period. And the economy is already slipping backward. GDP has fallen negative 1.2%. Unemployment is up to 6.1%, and wages remain painfully low. The typical household earns only $51,500, but even at that income level, rising costs are squeezing people tight. The median home price may look affordable at $184,000, yet 34% of residents are cost-burdened, spending a huge portion of their take-home pay just to stay housed. Add in an average of $38,200 in household debt, and it's easy to see how quickly one job loss can turn into a financial freefall. But the real danger is the infrastructure, because Mississippi isn't just financially fragile, it's physically fragile. More than 1,000 bridges are structurally deficient, water systems in major cities are failing, and the state ranks 49th in healthcare and 51st in education. These aren't the kinds of weaknesses you fix during a recession. These are the kinds you pray don't get worse. Mississippi is a state trying to stand tall with foundations that have been crumbling for decades. Every metric, every warning sign, every pressure point lines up in the same direction. Number 2, Colorado. Colorado pulled off one of America's greatest success stories, until that success turned into a financial meltdown happening in real time. For years, the state was booming. Tech jobs everywhere, record home building, people pouring in from every direction. But when prices rise faster than salaries, the crash doesn't happen suddenly. It creeps in quietly, and Colorado is already deep in it. Start with housing, because nothing exposes a state's pressure points faster. In Denver, the median home price has hit a jaw-dropping $631,000, and statewide it's still around $570,000. But the median income? Only $84,000. That mismatch alone would strain any state, but in Colorado it has pushed 37% of homeowners into being cost-burdened, and renters are getting hit even harder, with rents jumping 28% in just 2 years. For thousands of families, every renewal notice feels like a financial ambush. Meanwhile, the state's economic engine is slowing down. Unemployment has climbed to 5.4%, and GDP has slipped -0.6%, the kind of drop that means industries are quietly pulling back. Tech, tourism, and construction, 3 pillars of Colorado's growth, have already started trimming jobs. And with personal debt averaging $48,900, every rate hike hits households like a fresh punch to the gut. But here's the part that truly shows how much strain the state is under. Homelessness is up 21% statewide. That doesn't happen in a stable economy. That happens when the cost of existing rises faster than the ability to keep up. And while all this is happening, Colorado's rainy day fund sits at just 5.9%. Barely a cushion at all if things keep sliding. One deeper recession, and the state won't be able to cover the cracks fast enough. Colorado still looks shiny from the outside. The mountains, the tech scene, the lifestyle, but behind the postcard views is a state that's stretched past its breaking point. And if Colorado feels like a warning, the final state on this list is the full alarm. Because what's happening there isn't a slowdown. It's a collapse already in motion. Number 1, Louisiana. No state in America is in deeper trouble than Louisiana. It's a full-blown pre-collapse economy, cracking from every direction at the exact same time. This state isn't one recession away from trouble. It's already standing on the edge, and the ground underneath is starting to crumble. Louisiana has the weakest financial safety net in the entire country. Its rainy day fund covers just 4.3% of annual spending, the lowest in the United States. That means one serious drop in tax revenue, and the state is out of cash almost instantly, and that moment is getting closer. GDP has already fallen -1.4%. Unemployment has spiked to 6.6%, and more than 54,000 jobs have vanished, with oil, gas, tourism, and shipping all pulling back at the same time. When all your major industries get hit together, the state doesn't bend. It breaks. And the pressure on families is staggering. Nearly 23% of residents live below the poverty line, the second highest poverty rate in America. The median income sits at just $54,000, but even with that, basic living costs are spiraling out of reach. The median home price may be around $225,000, yet 40% of renters are severely cost-burdened, spending a huge chunk of their income just to keep a roof overhead. Add in $42,000 in average household debt, and every month feels like a financial cliffhanger. But the real crisis is the infrastructure, because Louisiana's economy isn't just weak, it's physically falling apart. Flood insurance costs are exploding, hurricane risk keeps rising, and the state's aging water systems and power grids are failing more often each year. Hospitals are closing, rural clinics are evaporating, and the education system ranks near the bottom of the nation. When a state is this stretched, a recession doesn't just cause pain, it causes collapse. Louisiana is already fighting a battle against poverty, storms, shrinking industries, and a budget on life support. A recession would hit like a knockout punch. And that wraps up the 10 states most likely to collapse first if the United States slips into recession. After looking at all the numbers and warning signs, one thing is clear: this is bigger than home prices or unemployment rates. This is about pressure building on families faster than they can keep up with it. Rising insurance costs, shrinking job markets, underwater mortgages, growing debt, it all adds up. But here is what truly matters. You do not need to predict the recession to protect yourself from it. Smart financial decisions always start with preparation. For homeowners, that means paying attention to your equity, your insurance, your loan terms, and your exposure to risk. For renters, it means understanding how quickly rents can surge in unstable markets. And for investors, it means diversifying and building income streams that stay strong even when the economy weakens. Recessions do not hit every state the same way, and they do not hit every household the same way either. The more you understand what is coming, the better you can shield your family and your future. So, here is my question to you. Which state on this list surprised you the most, and which one do you think is already showing signs of trouble? Share your thoughts in the comments.